10:30 p.m. at Millbrook Community College. Marcus Kane polished his daughter's charm bracelet in the security booth when screaming shattered the silence. He sprinted toward the dormitories, where 3 wealthy students cornered a girl in a coffee shop uniform. They grabbed her laptop, shoved her backward. Coffee splashed everywhere. "Stay in your lane, scholarship girl," one snarled. Marcus burst into the circle, his military frame towering over them. "Campus security! Step away from her now!" His voice carried the authority of 11 years guarding students and 20 years as a soldier. The bullies froze. Fear flickered across their faces. "We were just talking, sir," the leader stammered. "Talking involves pushing people to the ground?" Marcus stepped closer, radio crackling on his belt. "Move, now!" They scattered like startled animals. The girl stood slowly, brushing asphalt dust from her uniform. But something felt completely wrong. Her posture radiated confidence, not gratitude. Her laptop was a $3,000 MacBook Pro. Her eyes held secrets that didn't match minimum wage work. "Thank you, officer. I'm Maya," a coffee shop worker who carried herself like royalty. Who exactly had he just protected? Marcus escorted Maya safely back to her dormitory, then drove home to his modest apartment 3 miles off campus. The kitchen table held exactly 2 items: a framed photo of his 18-year-old daughter Allison wearing her Boston University sweatshirt, and a stack of unpaid medical bills from his wife Jennifer's cancer treatment. 2 years since the funeral, and he still reached for the phone to call her every night before bed. 45 years old, 11 years working campus security, and some days he felt like he was barely keeping his head above water. He opened the nightstand drawer and pulled out the charm bracelet he'd been saving for Allison's 19th birthday next month. Each silver pendant told a story. First day of kindergarten, middle school graduation, the day she got her college acceptance letter with a partial scholarship. Marcus had worked double shifts that entire summer to cover her remaining expenses. Pre-med at Boston University wasn't cheap, but Allison had earned every opportunity through sheer determination. The apartment felt hollow, without her laughter echoing from the kitchen, without Jennifer's voice calling him to dinner. Marcus heated leftover pizza in the microwave and wondered how other single fathers managed the crushing loneliness. At least his job gave him purpose, protecting students like Allison, even if they weren't his own daughter. Students like Maya, though something about her still bothered him. That laptop cost more than his monthly salary, yet she worked at the campus coffee cart for $8 an hour. The next morning, Marcus arrived early for his shift and spotted Maya behind the espresso machine. She moved with careful precision, like someone still learning manual labor. Her uniform was perfectly pressed, her name tag slightly crooked. When she handed him his usual black coffee, her fingers were soft. No calluses from years of service work. "How's your laptop after last night?" he asked, studying her reaction. "Fine, thank you. Those guys target anyone who doesn't fit their social expectations." Maya's voice carried a subtle accent. Not regional, but educated. Private school educated. "Are you all right, though? You looked shaken when you left." The concern in her voice seemed genuine, but Marcus had learned to read people during his military years. This girl was hiding something significant. Just another night protecting students. Part of the job. He sipped his coffee, noting how Maya's eyes tracked every detail of his uniform. His badge number, his radio frequency, his name tag. "You're a senior, right? Must be exciting, almost graduating." Maya's smile faltered for just a moment, like someone caught in a lie. "Yes, hoping to finish strong in May. Just trying to make ends meet while completing my degree." Marcus nodded, remembering Allison's struggles with college expenses, the endless cycle of textbooks, lab fees, housing costs that kept climbing every semester. "My daughter's a freshman at Boston University, pre-med track. I know how tough the financial pressure can be." Maya's expression shifted entirely. Soft, vulnerable, almost wistful. She's incredibly lucky to have a father who understands and supports her dreams. 2 days later, Marcus found Maya in the library surrounded by advanced business textbooks, corporate finance, international law, strategic management, senior-level coursework that required serious intellectual firepower. She was taking notes on a legal pad, her handwriting elegant and precise. When she saw him approaching, she quickly closed her laptop screen. But not before he glimpsed an email header that read, "Sterling Industries Board Meeting Agenda. Business major," Marcus asked, settling into the chair across from her. Maya hesitated, her fingers drumming against the table, a nervous habit that seemed completely at odds with her usual composure. Senior capstone project, 4 years of preparation leading up to this final semester. She gestured at the textbooks with what looked like genuine frustration. Though I'm not entirely sure my conclusions will be popular with certain people who matter, Marcus understood that feeling. He'd written plenty of military reports that contradicted what his superiors wanted to hear. Sometimes the truth isn't convenient for people in power, doesn't make it any less true. Maya looked up sharply, as if he'd said something profound. "What's your project about?" he asked, genuinely curious about what kept this mysterious student up late in the library. "Corporate ethics and social responsibility in modern business practices." Maya's voice carried passion when she discussed her work. Specifically, how companies can maintain profitability while genuinely caring for their employees' welfare rather than treating them as expendable resources. She paused, studying Marcus's reaction. I suppose that sounds idealistic to someone who works in the real world. Marcus thought about his own struggles. Medical debt from Jennifer's treatment, choosing between groceries and Allison's textbook expenses, working night shifts that left him exhausted but barely financially stable. Doesn't sound idealistic at all, sounds necessary. Maya's eyes brightened with something that looked like hope, or maybe relief. My daughter Allison is learning similar lessons. Boston University has been eye-opening for her in terms of economic realities. That weekend, Maya missed her Saturday shift at the coffee cart. The supervisor mentioned she'd called in sick with severe flu symptoms. Marcus knew he was overstepping professional boundaries, but something about Maya reminded him too much of Allison. Young, determined, struggling with pressures she shouldn't have to handle alone. He stopped by the campus market and picked up soup, crackers, and orange juice. Maya's dormitory room was in the senior housing complex. Single occupancy, furnished with basic institutional furniture that had seen better decades, but the space was meticulously organized, textbooks arranged by subject, clothes hung in perfect order. On her desk, Marcus noticed framed photos that seemed expensive. European architecture, graduation ceremonies at what looked like prestigious preparatory schools. The contradiction between her current simple living situation and these glimpses of obvious wealth was becoming impossible to ignore. "You didn't have to come," Maya said weakly from her narrow bed. Her face was flushed with fever, but even sick, she maintained that careful dignity. Marcus set the soup on her desk next to a bottle of moisturizer he recognized from department store cosmetic counters. La Mer, $300 an ounce. This is what people do when they care about each other, he said gently. Take care of those who need it. Maya's eyes filled with tears that had nothing to do with her illness. My father has never brought me soup when I was sick. Never asked if I'd eaten dinner or felt safe walking alone at night. Her voice broke slightly. He measures caring differently than most people. Success metrics, performance indicators, return on investment. Marcus sat down in her desk chair, studying this young woman who seemed to carry invisible burdens far heavier than textbooks. Over the following weeks, Marcus and Maya developed an unlikely friendship. He taught her basic car maintenance when her Honda Civic developed engine problems. She helped him select a care package for Allison, displaying surprising knowledge about high-quality study supplements and stress relief products. They established a routine where Marcus would check on Maya after her evening shifts, and she would update him about her academic progress while sharing homemade cookies from batch recipes that seemed too sophisticated for dormitory cooking. The more time Marcus spent with Maya, the more contradictions he noticed. Her laptop required expensive software licenses that cost more than most students' entire computer budgets. She stepped outside to take phone calls, speaking in hushed tones about things she couldn't discuss right now. When helping him shop for Allison's care package, Maya demonstrated perfect knowledge of luxury brands and fine dining etiquette. She mentioned casually having attended prep school and spending summers studying abroad in Europe, then quickly changed subjects. Late one evening in the campus quad, Maya confided something that broke Marcus's heart. "Sometimes I feel like I'm living someone else's life these past 4 months, like the real me is locked away somewhere, and I'm just playing this role to prove a point to people who will never understand." Her voice carried exhaustion that went far beyond academic stress. "What if when I become who I'm supposed to be, I disappoint the only person who's ever cared about me for just being myself?" Marcus thought about Allison, studying hundreds of miles away, trying to balance her own identity with family expectations and financial pressures. "Anyone who truly cares about you will love you regardless of your circumstances, sweetheart. The people who matter don't love you for what you can provide them. They love you for who you are inside." Maya broke down crying, and Marcus found himself holding this young woman like he would his own daughter. "I've never had anyone say that before," Maya whispered. "Never had anyone worry about whether I'd eaten dinner or felt safe or was genuinely happy. Just pure concern without expecting anything in return." Marcus's protective instincts, dormant since Allison left for college, awakened completely. Maya needed a father figure, and he needed someone to care for. It felt like providence, even though he couldn't shake the feeling that Maya was hiding something significant about her background. Spring semester's annual career fair transformed the campus into a corporate showcase. Marcus worked security, monitoring the streams of recruiters and students networking in the main gymnasium. The energy was electric. Seniors dressed in their best professional attire, clutching resumes and business cards. Alumni returning to share success stories. Local businesses hoping to attract fresh talent. Marcus enjoyed these events because they reminded him why he protected this community. These students represented the future. Then the Blacktown cars arrived. A convoy of 3 vehicles with tinted windows and corporate license plates. Professional drivers in dark suits emerged first, followed by security personnel who moved with military precision. Finally, a man in an expensive Italian suit stepped onto the campus sidewalk. Marcus recognized him immediately from business news coverage. Robert Sterling, CEO of Sterling Industries, a multinational corporation worth billions of dollars. What was he doing at a small community college career fair? A young man who looked familiar approached Sterling with obvious excitement. It was Bradford, the leader of the group that had been bullying Maya that first night. "Mr. Sterling, perfect timing, sir. Your daughter's social experiment has certainly been the talk of campus this semester." Bradford's voice carried the entitled confidence of old money. Marcus moved closer, his security instincts activated by the conversation's tone. Sterling's executive assistant opened a tablet and showed the CEO detailed surveillance footage. Campus security cameras had captured Maya serving coffee, studying in the library, talking with Marcus at various locations throughout the semester. "Cassandra Maya Sterling, sir. She's been working minimum wage service positions and living on approximately $800 per month under her middle name for the entire final semester." Marcus felt reality crashing down around him. Maya wasn't Maya. She was Cassandra Sterling, daughter of one of America's wealthiest men. Everything clicked into place with devastating clarity. Her expensive technology wasn't saved for over months. It was pocket change. Her knowledge of luxury goods wasn't from research. It was her normal lifestyle. Her phone calls weren't from part-time job supervisors. They were from corporate headquarters and family attorneys. Sterling strode purposefully toward the campus coffee area where Maya was working her afternoon shift. Marcus followed, his protective instincts warring with confusion and growing anger. Students stepped aside as the billionaire CEO crossed the quad, his entourage trailing behind like a small army. Maya looked up from the espresso machine and went completely pale. She knew this confrontation was inevitable. "Enough of this undergraduate social experiment, Cassandra," Sterling announced in a voice that carried across the entire seating area. Students stopped their conversations to stare. 4 months of playing working-class college student is sufficient research data. Graduation ceremony is next week. Board orientation begins Monday morning. Time to assume your responsibilities as my successor. Maya's hands trembled as she set down the coffee cup she'd been filling. "Father, please. Not here. Not in front of everyone." Her voice cracked with humiliation. Marcus realized that every vulnerable moment they'd shared, every tear she'd cried, every time she'd called him, like having a real father, had been part of an elaborate deception. He was her research subject, her experiment in understanding how normal people lived. Sterling noticed Marcus approaching with obvious concern. "And who might this gentleman be? Another test subject in your anthropological research project?" Bradford smirked with malicious pleasure. "That's the night security guard who's been playing surrogate father to her all semester. Quite touching, really. He had absolutely no idea who she actually was." The humiliation hit Marcus like a physical blow. 4 months of genuine concern, late-night worry about Maya's finances, teaching her life skills she obviously didn't need, sharing stories about his own struggles while she sat there collecting data about how poor people survived. He'd been entertainment for a billionaire's daughter, a case study in working-class behavior. Maya tried desperately to make eye contact with Marcus as her father's security team escorted her toward the waiting vehicles. "Please," she mouthed silently. "Let me explain everything." But Marcus turned away, unable to process the depth of betrayal. That evening, he found a thick envelope slipped under his apartment door. Maya's handwriting on expensive letterhead. He threw it directly into the trash without reading a single word. The local newspaper ran the story on the front page the next morning. Billionaire CEO daughter's undercover semester at community college. The photograph showed Marcus and Maya during their car maintenance session, with a headline that made his stomach turn. "Security guard unknowingly mentors Sterling heiress." His phone started ringing before sunrise. Local television crews, social media requests, reporters wanting to know how it felt to be deceived by one of America's wealthiest families. Marcus's co-workers found the situation endlessly amusing. "So you've been babysitting billionaires, Kane?" They joked during shift changes. The college administration called an emergency meeting to discuss appropriate professional boundaries with students. Community members stared and whispered when he made routine grocery runs. Social media posts mocked the security guard who fell for the rich girl's performance. The humiliation was complete and public. Allison called from Boston, her voice tight with concern. "Dad, I saw the news coverage online. Are you okay? Who is this Maya person, really?" Marcus broke down completely. "I thought I was helping a hard-working student who needed guidance and support. Turns out she was conducting field research on how working-class people survive, and apparently I was her primary test subject. That doesn't sound like you to judge someone so harshly without hearing their explanation." Allison said carefully. "Maybe there's more to her story than what the media is reporting." But Marcus couldn't hear past his own humiliation. "You don't understand, baby. I worried about her affording textbooks while her family's net worth could purchase our entire town. I taught her how to change her oil. I gave her life advice about perseverance and hard work. She must have found it pathetically entertaining. Despite Robert Sterling's explicit orders to report directly to corporate headquarters, Maya returned to campus multiple times trying to find Marcus, but he deliberately avoided every location where they used to meet: the coffee cart, the library, his usual security patrol routes. She left increasingly desperate items at the security office: a detailed handwritten letter explaining her motivations, a photograph from their car maintenance day with a note on the back. "You showed me what unconditional caring looks like." The charm bracelet Marcus had dropped during their confrontation appeared on his desk with a tiny new engraving: "To the father I needed most." Along with a copy of her senior capstone project titled Corporate Social Responsibility: Lessons from Ground-Level Perspective. The dedication page read, "To Marcus Kane, who taught me the difference between leadership authority and genuine care for others." Against his better judgment and despite feeling foolish for caring, Marcus finally retrieved Maya's crumpled letter from the trash. Her words cut through his anger with surgical precision. "Marcus, I know you feel deceived and used. You have every right to hate me completely. But please understand that every tear was genuine, every moment of gratitude was real, every time I called you, like having a real father, came from my heart. You were the first person who ever cared if I was safe, if I'd eaten properly, if I was happy, without wanting anything in return. That kind of love isn't something money can purchase or research can replicate." Sunday evening before Maya's graduation week, Marcus agreed to meet her at the empty campus chapel. She appeared wearing simple graduation rehearsal clothes, not the designer outfits he now knew she could afford. "Thank you for giving me this chance to explain," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus sat in the front pew, struggling between his genuine care for this young woman and his overwhelming sense of betrayal. "Help me understand, Maya, or Cassandra, whatever your real name is. Why did you let me think you needed my help, my guidance?" His voice carried all the hurt of the past weeks. Maya sat down across the aisle, tears already streaming down her face. "Because I did need your help. Do you know what it's like having a father who only sees your potential market value, who measures love through quarterly performance reports and return on investment calculations? You were the first person who asked if I'd eaten dinner, if I felt safe walking alone at night, if my classes were fulfilling as learning experiences, not my networking potential, not my internship prospects, not my value to the family business, just me as a human being." Her voice broke completely. "I was drowning in expectations, and you threw me a lifeline when I needed it most." Marcus wanted to stay angry, but her pain seemed completely genuine. "Maya, I lost sleep worrying about you struggling to afford basic necessities while your family could buy this entire college without affecting their budget. I felt like an idiot teaching you life skills you obviously didn't need." Maya stood up, pacing the small chapel with nervous energy. "I was struggling, not financially but emotionally, spiritually. I felt like I was suffocating under the weight of being Robert Sterling's daughter. When I turned 21, he demanded I transfer from Liberal Arts College to Wharton Business School immediately to prepare for company succession upon graduation. I negotiated one final deal with him. Let me complete my undergraduate education my way, prove I could survive entirely on minimum wage earnings for one complete semester, and I would join Sterling Industries without any further resistance." Maya's explanation came out in a rush, like she'd been rehearsing this conversation for weeks. He agreed, thinking I would fail spectacularly within 3 weeks and come crawling back to family wealth. He froze every account, every credit card, every financial resource except the tuition payment that was already committed. Everything else had to come from my own earnings. Maya wiped her eyes with trembling hands. "Those students bullying me? They were from my old private school social circle. Father specifically asked them to monitor my progress and create difficulties that would force me to abandon the experiment early. Marcus felt his anger wavering as he began to understand the complexity of Maya's situation. But that night I protected you. You didn't know my background, didn't expect gratitude or recognition, didn't want anything except to help someone in trouble. That was the first time anyone had ever helped me, purely because it was the right thing to do. Maya's voice grew stronger as she continued. Every conversation we shared, every piece of advice you gave, every time you worried about my safety, that was the first genuine parenting I'd ever experienced. I can accept that we come from completely different worlds. Marcus said finally. I can accept that you're destined for opportunities I can't even imagine. But I cannot accept that my genuine care was just data collection for your project. A way to feel normal before resuming your real